Imagine this scenario: it's payday, but before your hard-earned money even hits your account, someone else has predetermined how you'll allocate it. 1/3 goes towards housing. Another third for food, with strict limitations on plant and insect protein only. 10% for transportation, with minimal allowance for gas. 10% for a mandatory pension plan, largely invested in government bonds. And the remaining 14% for clothing, alcohol, and pharmaceuticals, all bought from state-licensed shops. Any spending outside of these categories incurs significant markups, and to make matters worse, any unspent money disappears from your account after just 3 months. This dystopian reality is not as distant as you might think. Central Bank Digital Currencies, or CBDCs, could turn this nightmare into a reality. CBDCs represent an attempt to patch up a failing monetary system while handing over nearly limitless control to the government, affecting our spending habits and our way of life. Why governments are pursuing CBDC programs, why they pose one of the most significant threats to our freedoms today, and what steps we can take to mitigate their impact on our life. For most of us, fiat currency is the only form of money we've ever known, and it may seem like the natural order of things. However, when we delve into history, we discover that fiat currency is far from a natural progression. In fact, it appears to be a dead end in the context of monetary history. Throughout millennia, humans have converged on gold and silver as the predominant forms of money. Only in the past century or so have we veered away from this historical trend, and the results have been catastrophic. In fact, 61 out of 62 documented cases of hyperinflation have occurred in the last century, coinciding with the era of fiat money when the link to precious metals was severed. Even when a currency isn't experiencing hyperinflation, people and economies still suffer. A regular inflation in single or double digits is sufficiently destructive due to its cumulative effects. To put it in perspective, a 2% inflation rate, a common target for many central banks, cuts the purchasing power of a currency in half in approximately 35 years. While recent inflation rates around 10% achieve the same result in just 7 years. In essence, fiat currencies either collapse swiftly or erode gradually. Ultimately, they all fail. Why CBDCs now? Some policymakers are aware of the inherent flaws in fiat currencies and attempt to salvage their monetary systems through reform. Instead of letting a currency die a spectacular death through hyperinflation, they opt for euthanasia, replacing it with another fiat currency. This is precisely what happened in Europe at the turn of the century when the euro was introduced. Smaller currencies plagued by high inflation rates, such as the Italian lira, Greek drachma, and Spanish peseta, were replaced with a new fiat currency that, until recently, enabled governments to postpone financial reckoning through rampant money printing and escalating debts. This scenario is mirrored worldwide. Money supplies inflate, purchasing power steadily diminishes, and debt levels soar. The common denominator is the monetary systems based on currencies that can be printed at will, which are fundamentally flawed. Some governments take a naive approach to currency reform by simply removing a few zeros from existing denominations. For example, in 2016, the Belarusian government shaved 4 zeros off its currency. The use of central bank digital currencies is a slightly more sophisticated attempt at reforming failing monetary systems, though they do not fundamentally change the nature of fiat currencies. If anything, CBDCs empower governments further and are likely to accelerate the erosion of ordinary citizens' purchasing power. One of the most effective ways to subjugate a society is to undermine a currency's two primary functions, serving as a store of value and a medium of exchange. Fiat currencies have long ceased to be reliable stores of value due to deliberate policies of perpetual inflation. By discouraging independent saving and incentivizing deepening debt, fiat currencies lead to increased dependence on the state and its policies. Fiat currencies effectively shackle individuals in debt servitude, and CBDCs are unlikely to reverse this trend. To comprehend why CBDCs are likely to further erode the store of value function of money, consider how the current financial systems operate. Take the US banking system, for instance. Most financial systems around the world operate similarly. The Federal Reserve, the US central banking system, oversees and executes monetary policies. During and after the 2008 financial crisis, the Fed pursued an expansive monetary policy with near-zero interest rates to stimulate the economy. Here, we encounter another crucial aspect of the US financial system: commercial banks. Banks were hesitant to lend out the newly injected money and instead deposited trillions of dollars with the Fed, limiting the effectiveness of the central bank's policies. Now, if a CBDC were in place, the Fed could bypass commercial banks and directly deposit newly created money into the accounts of ordinary citizens. They would likely spend it immediately rather than saving it, and this presents a problem. This money would be created out of thin air, accelerating the erosion of everyone's purchasing power. In terms of the store of value function of money, CBDCs would be worse than any previous system, allowing the central bank to digitally print money at an unprecedented pace, depositing it directly into people's accounts, possibly even introducing an expiration date for currency units. The freedom to engage in transactions is a prerequisite for most other freedoms. Money plays a pivotal role in half of all economic transactions in society, as every exchange of goods or services necessitates the transfer of money. If money falls under full state control, the state gains control over nearly everything in society. Until now, even the most authoritarian governments have not had complete control over all transactions, as they have yet to eliminate cash. However, CBDCs are intended as full replacements for cash, and with smartphone penetration exceeding 80% in developed countries, a fully cashless society governed by a state-managed CBDC is on the horizon. Moreover, current payment systems, despite offering some level of control, remain relatively decentralized. In the US and EU, the national payment system comprises numerous commercial banks, payment providers, credit card companies, and other services, forming a complex payment ecosystem. While censoring payments in such an environment is possible, it is not straightforward and usually occurs only in cases of serious criminal activity. If CBDCs function as intended, a single entity, the central bank, would gain complete control over the national payment system. This would enable simple interventions, such as blocking payments from anyone, effectively realizing a totalitarian dream. China's advanced CBDC program serves as an example. Should Western nations follow suit? 130 countries representing 98% of global GDP are currently pursuing CBDC programs. The Atlantic Council CBDC tracker closely monitors individual programs, revealing that 11 countries have already launched digital currencies, 21 are in pilot stages, and the rest are at various stages of research and development. If the potential consequences of central bank digital currencies concern you, there are steps you can take to mitigate their risks. Stay informed, educate yourself about CBDCs. Use cash, whenever possible, opt for cash transactions. Embrace Bitcoin. Bitcoin can serve as a means to preserve purchasing power, especially if CBDCs are introduced and cash is eliminated. Bitcoin is permissionless, can be used without intermediaries, and is likely to remain so even after CBDCs are implemented. Consider holding Bitcoin in an open-source hardware wallet for optimal security. Conclusion. Under a CBDC regime, the statist monetary policies that have devalued currencies and imposed censorship are likely to persist. If CBDCs are introduced alongside a cash ban, a black market for currency may emerge. The most effective solution to the ongoing monetary issues caused by decades of fiat currency policies is organic, grassroots adoption of Bitcoin. Bitcoin possesses superior monetary properties compared to fiat and doesn't require the approval of the state to function as legitimate money. Thanks for watching.